Welcome to a new edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. Monday Night Football. Starting a little late, technical difficulties, but we're here. We'll go ahead and start the show now. Hi guys, I'm Weasel from FootMexSource.com. This is an hour-long podcast dedicated to all things Mexican football, Mexican soccer, however you like to call it, on this Monday Night Football, as we like to call it. We'll go ahead and get started since we started a little late today from some technical difficulties. We couldn't hit the start broadcast, so we had to start a new link. So I apologize, all of you guys that were already anxiously waiting in the podcast on the YouTube link, on the YouTube show channel. I apologize, but we're now back on. I have everybody here with lots and lots of people. So we'll go ahead and get started and see who we have on today's show. Mr. Tom Marshall, like always, from Guadalajara. Tom, how's it going?
Hello there, Weasel. Yeah, all good, thanks. Good game yesterday at Chivas, so looking forward to having a chat.
There it is. Always at games and very involved. Also, Mr. Johnny Rico, welcome to 2016. Didn't have you on last week. Johnny, how are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm sorry I missed last week's show. Would have loved to get into that debate.
Andrea Canales, welcome, Miss. Always a pleasure to have you on. You're with us in our last show of 2015 with the awards. Glad to have you back on.
Glad to be here. It's also my first show of 2016.
It is. I'm sorry, giving Johnny into a first show. And then before we introduce our next our special guest today, kind of would like to let you all know, especially on the chat, to thank you all for migrating to the new link. So I see a lot of people already on the chat with Joel, Jose Jimenez, a lot of people, Eddie Rocha, Antonio Ortiz. So saying hello to anyone in the chat. So if you're still, you still have time to jump on a computer and go into it, if you have a desktop or a laptop, and join us on this chat. That way you can ask some questions and all we were going to be doing. But as we let the music kind of play through, perfect timing. There it is. We'll say hi to our guest, Amy, who is now going to be our brand new and very, very excited to show us the news. Our new intern here at the Mexican Soccer Show. We've been tweeting all about it in the last month and a half, but I think officially who's going to be helping us with the show. We're growing, so we need a lot of help on social media, and so I wanted everybody to meet her. Amy, so how are you, Amy?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm super excited. I am. I'm really, really excited. I've been a big fan of every single one of you guys, so I feel like I'm on a show on TV and like I'm a guest star.
Oh man, well you did say you're a fan of every single one of us. So Johnny, even you.
I have one.
You have one fan at least.
One fan Rico.
Well, first we kind of wanted to get to know Amy, what she's going to be doing. Amy, the intern here at Mexican Soccer Show. That way you guys know what's going on. It was a long process of trying to really find someone that has a passion and has the experience ultimately that they can grow with us here at the Mexican Soccer Show. Amy, congratulations, and just kind of would love to. I'm sure everyone's just kind of trying to figure out, where do you come from, where do you where do you go, where do you live, what's your story, why did we pick you? It's kind of fun, but I know Amy has a lot of experience with social media and also with soccer, so I'll let you kind of take it from here. Amy, you're in Los Angeles, and obviously big fan of the Mexican national team, as we can see in the flag in the back, or just Mexico. But tell us a little bit about your experience on football, and especially with what you've done at USC.
Yeah, I'm from Los Angeles, born and raised a Mexican. Both my parents are Mexican, big fan of Mexico national soccer team. I just graduated. I just got my diploma today from USC. I studied broadcast. broadcast digital journalism at USC with a sports media studies minor, and yeah, I've dabbled a little bit everywhere. I used to intern at Fox Deportes. I helped out at Universal Sports. But my end goal and is pretty much to be like all the guys and girl here. You know, just spending the rest of my life getting getting paid to talk about soccer. So when I heard about the internship, I just, I emailed my resume and, was hoping to get called back, and I did. So I'm really looking forward to it. I love, being able to be part of the conversation on Twitter, and I hope to continue to do that online.
All right. Well, there it is. A little bit about, not too much, because there's some crazies out there. You'd be amazed. That's how we found. That's how we found Johnny, and we're like, all right, he can come in, and we need that voice. But guys, welcome, Amy, and I know that you have to take off. Was that? Did you say something, Andrea? Sorry.
I just said welcome. I was paid onto your welcome. That's all.
That's all. What Amy's going to be doing, she's going to be obviously updating the social media. You're going to hopefully see her also some of her work. I know she's got a nice little blog. What's it called, Amy?
It's called Analyzing the Aztecs.
Analyzing the Aztecs. I know that you'll have that. So we'll be tweeting out some more links, and obviously her venture through with Mexican Soccer Show, but she's going to be taking care of social media, obviously updating anything we have here with the Mexican Soccer Show, Facebook, and all of that for now. And then obviously we can help her on her way to becoming a journalist, and hopefully, obviously take notice, because there's a lot of talent and around us. So I'm glad that you're with us, Amy. I know Cesar was also wanting to be on this show, because I know you've been working closely with him, but he sends his regards, and obviously he sends his congratulations to the show. So.
Cesar is in Vegas. I think the Mexican Soccer Show right now, he does not even know where we're on.
He's not like you, John. He's not like you. All right, Amy, I know you have to go, but thank you again.
Go to Vegas.
Thank you guys so much.
And we'll see you.
Nice to meet you,
sounds
Amy.
good. Thanks,
Nice to meet you, Amy.
everybody. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, there you go. I mean, we're moving up, and we have interns, right? It's like, you have to have that. I mean, someone's crazy enough to work with us, so that's got to be good. In an unpaid position, so we'll see where that goes. But thank you to all of you that applied. It was really, kind of really hard to try to pick someone, but we felt that with Amy's background and obviously where she wants to go, we found a perfect fit. So we'll see where it goes, and we might need to hire 2 or 3 interns. Who knows?
Next time, can we do a game show about it?
A game show? Nice. All right, guys, since we're already late enough, it's already 7:21 in the Pacific, so I could just imagine the Jason Markowitz of the world in the East Coast is going to be almost 12 before we're done. So thank you to all of you that kind of hung in there, especially on the chat, still there. And we'll go ahead and get started really quick. What we're going to go over today on the Mexican Soccer Show, we're going to start with Liga MX. For those of you that were sending us tweets that said, hey, you're going to spend some time with Liga MX, because last week you spent about 10 minutes and you rushed it. So a lot of Liga MX today. We're going to go into discussion about Naturalizados, the hot topic that's going on in all of Mexico, and it has not necessarily in the Mexican national team, but now in teams. I have a quick stat for you guys out there. America Chivas, obviously the controversy with the coaches. Leon mentioning that obviously the super leader for right now. And we'll see where Liga MX will take us. And then we'll go into the Europeos. Great weekend for those guys, especially Hector Moreno with two golazos, who now, and I'll do a little preview, now, did you guys know, has more goals than Rafa Marquez, and it's the leading defender in Europe for Mexico to have more goals than anyone else in the defensive position. So that's kind of cool. And then we'll go delve into Marco Fabian, Alan Pulido, and a little bit of El Tri. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, perfect. All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Our first topic is Liga MX. First question, we'll go into you, Mr. Tom. I know we were talking last week, Pachuca America was going to be the best game. Everybody looked at that game. But overall, I have a stat already 69 goals in the first 3 weeks for Liga MX. Thank you to our friend on Twitter, Mexican Stats. Definitely follow him. Gives you some, or him or her, we don't know, some great statistics on Mexico during the game. So, Tom, Liga MX.
How many goals was it?
69 total goals. for the first 3 weeks.
27 games. 69 in 27 games. I mean, Mexico's the average goal per game ratio is like it's higher than the Premier League, Bundesliga. It's pretty much higher than any of the major leagues, higher than MLS as well. I mean, in terms of goals scored, it's it's right up there.
So
I mean,
we need better defending.
It's one way of
No, but usually more goals is a more competitive league. I mean, yeah, we need better defending, but you can still say, having more goals is a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to watch. I don't know about competitive. It depends. I mean, it could be or it could not be. But I mean, I don't know. I think that's one of the things. When you look at the Mexican league, how many teams actually park the bus? I'd argue very, very few. It's very rare that you see a team absolutely park the bus. I think the majority of the games, two teams go at it. They want to attack. They want to get behind the opposition, and I think it's probably got something to do with the system as well. Having the split season, so 2 championships every year. So there's not really much point playing for a draw or trying to get a draw. At one point it's like, what's the point? You might as well just go after every single game and try and go out and get the 3 points and blast other teams away. So yeah, it's exciting to watch, no doubt about it.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the goals has a lot to do with it, and maybe we couldn't really say that it's competitive, but at the same time, the entertainment aspect of you see goals every single time when we're looking at a league, and if it's a tie 0-0, we're gonna say it was a boring weekend. Let's just say that goals make the weekend better, and I don't know, Johnny, if poor defending in the leagues where there's a lot of goals, can we say that there was just poor defending, or just more of an offensive game of what Tom kind of said?
Well, I just said poor defending to be kind of funny, but this kind of going to lead us into the next topic later on. We have some really good strikers in our league. Yeah. Why? Because we have a lot of foreigners. We are now, reaping the benefits of the system that there is in place with so many foreigners and naturalizados. All this enjoyment that we're getting, yeah, it's thanks to what a lot of people want to do away with.
There you go. We'll be talking into I think it's a good conversation about the Naturalizados, especially what we have as a guest today. So we'll go into that. Andrea, to you, the weekend games, looking for America and Pachuca to be the probably the best match. But to you, what was the best match of the weekend? Looking out there, León 3-2, Cruz Azul towards the end. Even the Puebla drama that happened towards the end was kind of fun and entertaining. But what was your key game?
I do think that it kind of depends on what your interest is for watching that game. For me, I was especially interested in Pachuca Club America because last season I was on the Club America beat. They were my team. And, I was on Nacho Ambriz' death watch back then, and they didn't do so badly. But I knew that there would still be pressure on him for this year. So as far as, what there was at stake, in terms of the coach being a little bit in danger, that game was important. And also because I was curious. I'm here in LA, and I've seen Omar Gonzalez since he came to the Galaxy. So I was curious to see how he'd do against a top-quality team like Club America. Obviously, Pachuca pasted, Club America. So I have to say that, for the whole MLS to Liga MX transition, Omar Gonzalez is doing just great so far.
There he goes. Ventura Alvarado one more time for those of you that have seen that for an own goal. It looks like I laugh because it's not Ventura Alvarado one more time in the way that Clinzy looking at those games and talking about the players, which I'm sure you've already talked a lot about, Andrea. But interesting.
Yeah. No, but it's interesting with America. I mean, I think that in that game against Pachuca, I don't think they deserved the 4-1 defeat. I think that's the first thing to point out. I think they had the majority of the game and they had their opportunities, and obviously they weren't the best at the back and stuff. But I think a 4-1 was very, very kind to Pachuca. Having said that, I'm still very surprised considering the amount of changes that Club America have had over the last couple of years in terms of the head coach. I'm very surprised Nacho Ambriz is still there, and when you consider the names that are being bandied around. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, Johnny. I mean, I mean, the word is that he's gonna get another game, and we're gonna see if we can turn it around. But at the end of the day, last weekend they beat an Atlas that, I mean, just don't look to have much anymore. After a good first week, Atlas don't seem to have much, and America now, I don't know. I mean, what do you think, Johnny?
I think Ambris has 2 weeks in him left at the very least. America's next game's against Dorados, so that's about as guaranteed 3 points as it can get.
It's true.
Yeah, Dorados haven't scored, have they?
Yeah, you were talking about how no team in Liga MX parks the bus. I'm thinking Dorados should be one of those teams that should be parking the bus.
Yeah, and they don't. Dorados, if you look at the possession stats against Querétaro, they had like 65% possession, and they did absolutely nothing with it. But you're right. I think those teams where that there's a deficit in talent, you've got to make up for that in other ways. And I think tactically that's what some of these teams should be doing, these lower teams. But I don't know, they just don't seem to be very interested in doing it.
And you have to call it what it is. It's very naive of them.
Yeah, no, definitely.
It's all about the competitiveness. So if I have to tell you, Tom, I mean, and Johnny and Andrea, who loses their job first? Almeida or Ambris?
I'll go with Ambris, just because I think I don't know. I mean, I just don't think he's right there. You know what I mean? I just don't think his foot fits the shoe, so to speak. I mean, I just don't. Right from the very beginning, the Club World Cup, he started poorly this time round, and he's got a very good squad. They pumped a lot of money into that squad that he's got. I know there's been a couple of injuries and stuff, but I think he needs to be doing better, and I think the fans are already demanding it. They're already in his back, and when that kind of starts to happen, it seems like the writing is on the wall. Whereas Almeida, I don't know. I mean, you never know with Jorge Vergara, the Chivas owner. You never ever know. But everything that's coming out of the club is that he's going to back Almeida. He absolutely loves Almeida, and he loves his style of play, his attacking intent. So. Yeah, if I was to name it, I'd say Ambris.
Johnny, Andrea, pretty much the same.
I mean, I would say the same thing because Ambris and Club America, the expectations are higher. So when the expectations are higher, all Chivas has to do is survive. If they just hang in there, then Almeida stays on. But with Club America, they want trophies. Last season was the only, in the past 3 seasons, they've had 3 different coaches, and Ambris was the only one who didn't bring them a trophy of some kind. The clock is ticking on him.
Yeah.
There it is. The clock is ticking. Looking at overall as a league, 3, he's kind of switching the subject, looking at the leaders, Monterrey and León is invictos on the way that they're playing it. León without Boselli still, Monterrey, even though it was a 1-0 defeat, a win. Can we say, that's already starting to have, the winners in the way that they're playing? Is this a fluke, Tom? You're seeing the top of the statistics of the winners and so far, and who's at the bottom. Is that representative of the teams that are there? Cruz Azul, once again, not getting points. I still think, in the way that they are, but is it representative?
I think so, yeah. I think you look at the top, León and Monterrey. I think the one thing those 2 teams have in common is that I think what we're seeing this season now is tentatively, because obviously there's only been three matches, but the managers are starting to. We're starting to see the results of what they've put in. Mm-hmm. So Pizzi over at León is he's starting to implement his system, and obviously without Gullit Peña as well. So it's impressive what he's done. And then Monterrey with Mohamed. I mean, there was a very Mohamed performance against Atlas. Very solid. I didn't think they played particularly well, but they got that 1-0 win when they didn't play well. I just think Monterrey have got a lot more to give. I mean, but I mean, typical mark of Antonio Mohamed's side is that they've conceded 1 goal in the first 3 games. So you know what you're going to get, and I think Mohamed's a manager who's taken much lesser teams than Monterrey to the title.
Yeah.
Go like Club America. I'm only joking, Johnny, but Tijuana, for example. I mean, I think he's got a very, very talented squad. Apart from that, Pachuca, I think you can put exactly in the same bracket. Alonso's really got it together. He's been boosted by a couple of big signings. Andrea mentioned Gonzalez has been immense so far, but also Murillo, the Colombian centre back. So they look like a really good centre back pairing. And for me, that's what Pachuca were missing, just that solidity at the back. So the other Santos Laguna, Zubeldia, I spoke to him last week. The new manager, he's only 35. It's weird speaking to someone who's like almost the same age as you, and he's already a manager of first division team. But I think that he knows very much what he's doing. I think he's very, very. I think there's a reason why he was given a job at a first division Argentine club when he was 27. I think he knows the game inside out. He's studied it, and you can see that in the last couple of games with Santos. I think that he could do something there. And just quickly with Tigres, just going back to the game against Chivas, because I was at the game and Gignac wasn't. He had a stomach problem, Moctezuma's revenge apparently, but so he missed out. But I mean, Tigres to me are just almost like in pre-season. Even Ferretti in the press conference afterwards, he wasn't angry. And you look at that game and you think, that is a game that Ferretti would have hated. I mean, the amount of mistakes that Tigres made was incredible. It's just not like the Tigres that we know. So I think that they're just going to keep growing into this season. And I think they had very little preseason anyway, so I see them as growing into the tournament as it develops. And honestly, if you look at it in that context, and with Nahuel Guzman's mistakes, like big time mistakes for both goals, he was at fault. That was an opportunity for Chivas. That was an opportunity to pick up that first 3 points of the season.
Yeah,
you cut Tigres some slack there, calling these first few games preseason. What about America? They didn't have no preseason. This first few games could be their preseason.
Well, yeah, he doesn't have that luxury.
You think Chivas have gotten lazy this season, partly because Dorados is doing so badly that it gives them leeway in the whole relegation? They no longer have that huge threat of relegation hanging over them, because I do think they missed an opportunity against Tigres, and part of me is wondering why. And maybe it's because Dorados is doing so badly, it gives them a little bit more of a comfortable cushion to worry about being the el descenso.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure it's lazy. I just think that, but I do agree. It's completely changed the conversation about Chivas.
When was the last time Chivas won?
It was against Atlas last season. They've won 1 in the last 9 in the league. So it's poor. That is the definition of relegation form. That's what it is. But obviously you've got this Dorados team. But I think the thing with Chivas is
they're actually losing every game. They're not even getting 1 point for a draw.
Yeah, no. But without Dorados, there would be incredible pressure now on Almeida's job.
Yeah. Dude, the question is, do you see are they just being unlucky in the last 3 games, Tom? Because I'm watching this game, Chivas should have won that game. And then looking at the week before, Chivas should have won. I feel like sometimes it does happen to you that way, but I already see a better Chivas than last season.
No, yeah, they play better, definitely. They're exciting to watch. I'm enjoying the games, but at the end of the day, they're still making mistakes.
Yeah, true. But
it's like
it's gonna catch up, I think.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, basically, they've took the lead in all 3 games, and they've drawn all 3. And now Almeida knows that, and he's like, we're lacking that kind of game management, that intelligence, that when we score a goal, we've got to concentrate doubly instead of, giving the opposition opportunities. But, I think defensively they've got problems. I think there's a problem with the balance in the team. I think there's too many players just flying forward. And you look at Tigres, where they just turned it on for this 10-minute period in the second half, and they absolutely cut up Chivas. I mean, they scored 2. They could have scored 4. I mean, it was just like knife through butter. It was so easy. So, yeah, I think Chivas are great to watch, but I think defensively there are still some real issues.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see where we're at. Let's look at just really quickly on the scores that from last week. Obviously, Guadalajara and Tigres 2-2. Pumas and Puebla, watching that game at the end was just hilarious. And obviously, what happened with the red card. Chiapas and Veracruz split at 1. Morelia, Toluca at 1. León, now the super leader 3-2 in Cruz Azul. Monterrey and Atlas. Monterrey winning 1-0. America, obviously, we've been talking about. And Pachuca 4-1. Pachuca. Tijuana 1-3. Santos obviously getting 3 goals in Querétaro 3-0 versus Dorados, who doesn't stand a chance. Really quick, Johnny, at the game, with what's going on with Piojo really quickly, suspensions, and obviously there at Xolos and what's happening. If you can give us a quick update.
Well, Xolos has definitely improved from last season, from the mess that the absolute mess Romano had created.
Which everybody could have told that was going to happen, except for, I mean, I don't think there was anyone that said that was a good hire. I mean, but go ahead.
Well, anyway, I think the scoreline 3-1 is not a reflection of what the game was. Santos had 2 goals in the last 2 minutes of the game. So, another MLS acquisition, Juninho. He's kind of starting to find his place in Xolos and in Liga MX. He came off the bench with the first touch of the ball. He put in a really nice through ball to Dairo Moreno, whose shot went wide. And then he later had a really good assist for Xolos to tie the game at the moment. But Xolos are slowly getting better. I mean, they're not gonna, I hope they're not expecting a trophy because they hired Miguel Herrera, but it's definitely a step in the correct direction. They're definitely back on track to be one of the better sides in Liga MX.
Well, there you go. We'll see where it comes from with Xolos, guys. What are you looking forward for next week?
So just quickly on Xolos, I think Johnny nailed it there. I think it is an improvement, but I still don't think the squad has the quality to be one of those top 8, 9 teams. You know what I mean? I think that they're starting to play better, but I still think that Herrera's got a lot of work to return this Xolos team that has basically done nothing at all since the title win. They've done absolutely nothing. I think they've got to 1 playoff since winning the title.
I can see them, in the playoffs this season. I mean, I don't see them top of the league, but definitely in a playoff position. I look at players like Carlos Guzman. He was new when Romano came in. He didn't impress me much, but under Herrera, he's grown so much, and he was one of the young players that I thought could really benefit once Herrera was hired. You also look at Henry Martin. I see what he does with Henry Martin, and I'm reminded of what he did with Raúl Jiménez. The way Herrera brings up these young players, gives them the responsibility to be in the starting lineup, boosts their confidence to be in the starting lineup, and these players, you can see how much they grow so fast.
Definitely.
We have a question from there at the Mexican Soccer Show, posted from Eddie Rocha. Player of the week for you guys. I'm going to have to go with the keeper for Puebla. That stepped in, the defender, and I just lost his name. They came in and saved him. Yes.
Oh, no.
The defender. They came in and saved Puebla from that 1-0 from Pumas. But, guys, real talk. To you guys, if we had to pick a player of the week, what would it be?
I was just thinking we should do this every week. We should have a player of the week, and then that way we're watching the games, kind of like looking to see who's going to impress us the most.
Eddie Rocha from the chat, and look what we've already started. Maybe a new segment for.
Damn it, Eddie! Now everyone's gonna know I watched one game all weekend, and that was a Xolos game, and that's because I had to be at the Estadio Caliente working.
Oh yeah. Well, I
didn't do my homework.
I ended up watching the little highlight videos on various places, so I'm always partial to goal scorers. So You know, what can I say? Ventura Alvarado's goal was really.
To be honest, and you know what, I'm very superstitious this way. I was so Santos came
No.
into Santos came into Tijuana, so that meant Kim Tate was in town visiting her former hometown. So I was playing host. You know, we were on Saturday. We were out and about with some of my Cholos coworkers, and every time I'm around her, when there's an America game, America ends up losing. You know, there's about at least 10 examples, and this weekend was another one. She is just bad luck, real bad luck.
Kim Tate, friend of the show.
America opponents.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think I learned my lesson by now. Whenever there's an America game, just
Stay away from Kim Tate.
her. Yeah.
Kim, if you're watching, don't stay away from Johnny when it's a America game. Just stay away from Johnny overall, and we'll be good. Tom, to you, I mean, if you can name one player of the week.
Navarro over at Leon.
Mm-hmm.
Fullback, 2 goals in 5 minutes in the 3-2 win. You know, I think he's got to be a strong contender. Alustiza, big 3 points for Puebla. That, you know, I think that obviously a big win. So yeah, I'd go for those two. Fernando Fernandez came in, replaced Gignac, and scored an absolute beautiful goal, even if it might have been slightly offside. But and then set up Sobis for the second. So you know, I'd pick out those 3.
Yeah, speaking seriously, I'd have to go for Navarro because he really turned that game around. I mean, his team was actually behind Leon, and then Navarro just does his thing, and you know that really boom. And for a defender to do that, I'm always partial to defenders, you know, getting into the mix and making a difference in games. So, speaking seriously, I would say my player of the week would be Navarro.
I thought I was going to be biased by saying Navarro, so I stayed out of the conversation because for Leon, for what he did, just kind of listening to that. And then on Sunday, not watching many of the games, so I really couldn't give you objective since my Cardinals were playing and completely lost the game. But what do I talk about football?
I didn't think they were playing. I think they just kind of shut up and
Let's not talk about it. Let's go ahead and just
walked
talk.
around a little bit.
Let's just not even talk about it. But anyways.
Is that an MLS team?
It's actually a baseball team.
Nice.
So let's go ahead and switch the topic. Well, guys, next week, what are we looking for with Liga MX? Veracruz, Tijuana, Santos, and Querétaro on Friday. On Saturdays, Cruz Azul, Chiapas, Morelia, Guadalajara, Tigres, and León should be a good game. Pachuca, Monterrey, Atlas, Pumas, and Dorados, America. America will finally get that win. On Sunday, Toluca and Puebla. Guys, to you, I'm thinking León Tigres is one of the most interesting matches just because of where León is right now and Tigres coming back. But Tom, starting with you, most attractive game. What are you looking forward?
Well, I'm going to pick out Cruz Azul Chiapas for the sole reason that Cruz Azul need a win.
Yeah.
They really need a win, and you think at home to Chiapas, it has to come. I mean, Tomas Boy hasn't been there long, but this institution has just been just struggling so much of late that, you know, you've got Victor Vasquez who's likely to start, you've got Guerrón who's also probably going to start, Jesus Corona in goals, you know, starting games again now after an injury. So you have to think that it's a massive game for Cruz Azul, and if they don't win, then you got to think that fans are going to be putting some pressure on Tomas Boy.
Dun dun dun. Andrea?
I'd say America Dorados for the exact same reasons that Tom just mentioned. America just need a win.
And Andrea?
I would have to say that I'm still kind of curious as to how, you know, Viejo is coming along with the Xolos experiment. And every week I want to see, you know, I guess how he's affecting the team. Especially now I'm more intrigued with the things Johnny Rico mentioned about how he works with young players. I've always thought, you know, Paul Arriola has had a lot of potential, but never really got a chance to work with a coach that was consistently had belief and confidence in young players. and now he's coming on pretty regularly as a sub in games under Piojo. So I want to see the Xolos against Veracruz, who are a solid team this season. And yeah, especially if they're going to make the playoffs, they have to come into some of these games and surprise people and put it together. Especially now that, as Johnny Rico mentioned, Mini was also integrating into the team more. And he's another one that I covered here in LA. Great guy, cagey little midfielder, very tough and yet skilled. So I know that's a Friday game, but sometimes those are the ones that kind of set the tone for a really competitive Liga MX weekend. So I'll be looking forward to that.
Well, there you go. Take one.
Let me pick out two more games quickly. Tigres León, Pachuca Monterrey. I think I just want to mention those ones because I know it's early in the season in the Clausura, but to me they're almost like semi-final, quarter-final games. I mean, I think all four of those teams, Tigres, León, Pachuca, Monterrey, I think we're going to see them go far this tournament. So it'll be a bit of a litmus test as to where they're at.
Yeah, especially the Monterrey Pachuca. So it's interesting to see if any of those, if Monterrey or León keep with the perfect strike so far in the season. As we wanted to mention a little bit in the talk so we can kind of move the show forward. And Johnny mentioned it a little bit with the Naturalizados. I think a conversation that looks like we kind of keep on having, but mostly in regard to the El Tri is, usually the ex-coach going to call ex-players and all of that. The talks already with what players they can call, what players can't. But mostly, Liga MX Naturalizados is a topic that I kind of want you guys to kind of talk about. And I was surprised at a statistic that I saw over the weekend where out of all the players that played, the over 200, breaking it down, 128 were naturalizados to 120 something, a little bit under 128, came out to over 50%, barely 51% were naturalizados.
Let me question that stat. Is that naturalizados?
I'm sorry.
Mexicans?
I'm sorry.
Born outside of Mexico.
I'm sorry, not naturalizados. I'm sorry, foreign players. My bad. Naturalizados.
Born outside.
Foreign players. Born outside of Mexico. I was going into naturalizados talk.
But a few of those that you mentioned there, they do consider Mexican citizens, because they are naturalizados and they do play with a Mexican passport.
Yes. I'm sorry, I confusing naturalizados talk. Foreign players. Not
subject.
Yeah, so sorry. In the foreign-based players. So I think a lot of the news where, having the extranjeros, not naturalizados, extranjeros, being so much influence in the league in what we were talking about before. So kind of your thoughts on that's going, and glad to have Tom on who's seen, obviously the English game where, the extranjero rules and the play in the Liga affecting it, and also talking about other European leagues where we see a lot in Spain with the foreigners there. But I was just surprised at that statistic, having that, it's a Mexican league and having more foreign players playing than actual Mexican players.
Yeah, well, I think before going into the rights and wrongs, because people always seem to have, oh no, we need to be doing this, need to be doing that. I think the thing to point out, and I did a story last week, I spoke to a couple of lawyers down here in Mexico, and went through the Constitution with them and went through the federal labor law and said because obviously in most countries, somebody who's naturalized citizen has exactly the same rights as somebody who was born there because you're a citizen, you know what I mean? And your government represents you and defends you. So yeah, and I mean, that was basically, there's a few little things in the Mexican law which is slightly different, but basically that's the case. So there's no way that the Liga MX can reduce the number of, as I understand it, there's no way they can reduce the number of naturalizados in the league. It's just something that they cannot do.
And I joined this debate saying, this is the real discrimination issue to me, because a naturalizado does have all the rights as a Mexican player. Ruben Sambueza, for example, of America, he has a Mexican passport. He is just as Mexican as anyone on the Chivas roster. In the
eyes of the law. Yeah.
He is a Mexican citizen. He plays with a Mexican passport. It doesn't matter where he was born. We cannot discriminate against a player like that.
Yeah, no, but I don't think the moral and the emotional side of it doesn't come into it. It's black and white. It's legal. You know what I mean? It's legality, and the league can't come up and say, you know, the naturalized players can't play or to reduce the amount, as I understand it. Now, that doesn't mean they couldn't introduce other rules. For example, you know, 3 Mexican under 23s have to be in every starting 11 or something like that. They can do that, as I understand it, but they can't do the naturalized rules. So I don't know. I just think the whole debate here in Mexico, and it annoys me sometimes because it's like, you know, shall we reduce them? And they're debating on the TV shows, and it's like, well, actually, you can't. So it's just it's a nonsensical debate.
Well, it's. I mean,
what I want to know is, where do they count players like Isaac Brizella or Omar Gonzalez? They were not
the Mexican.
Mexico.
No,
but I've seen a lot of times people don't call them naturalizados, so they say that Chivas still doesn't play with naturalizados, and
Yeah.
I'm like, Isaac Brizella was eligible for Mexican citizenship, but he had to obtain it. If you're born somewhere else and you still have to claim your citizenship that you're eligible for, so you still have to go through a process to obtain it.
Yeah, Miguel Ponce too.
I feel like we're having a discussion about politics and
no, but the thing with that is the.
I'm not like, you know, saying it should be one way or another. I'm just trying to say, like, you know, how are they counting the American born as not foreign?
No, because in the Constitution. Because in
where they were born.
Okay,
but in the Constitution of Mexican parents,
Andrea, here's a simple explanation. It's you're either a citizen because you moved to Mexico and lived there for 2 years, or you're a citizen by birth. Now, a son of a Mexican is because you were born to a Mexican parent that you have that right to be a Mexican. So it's by birth or by naturalization. So Isaac Brizuela is a by birth case.
I understand, but even if it's by birth, you have the right. You don't actually have Mexican citizenship until you go and you claim it.
And you claim it.
No, but the Mexican government accepts that you are Mexican, even though you don't yet have the citizenship. If you're born outside of... That's why you remember when Vicente Fox was like, I'm the president of all of Mexico and 30 million Americans. Remember that? I don't know. Somebody in the chat might remember that, but it was a big debate. But the Mexican Constitution, if Johnny born in the US, you recognize as soon as you're born as Mexican, and obviously you do have to go and get it. But I don't know. It's complicated. But I think that the big theme is, obviously, is that it's a bit of a loophole, because what happens is Mexico's got to deal with the Iberian Peninsula countries, so Spain and Portugal, and Latin American countries, where they only have to be resident in Mexico for 2 years for them to be able to get citizenship, which is a very, very low amount of time. For example, in my case, I have to live in Mexico for 5 years before I can claim my citizenship. So the Mexican law has fueled this naturalizados debate, because it's so easy to become naturalized. You only have to play for 2 full seasons.
Well, I think that has more of like, not to go into more of a political and stuff, but different countries teach and have different political laws from where you're from or not. A big example of that could be visas.
Oh yeah,
another one.
I'm just saying, like, you look at the Mexican league. Where did the players come from? South America.
Mm-hmm.
The vast majority. So you get a South American player. He plays only for 2 years. All of a sudden he's a citizen, and then he's obviously got every right to play. So I'm just trying to give a framework, because I think a lot of people out there don't understand why it's become an issue. You know what I mean? And I think then following on from that is the legitimate debate about how does this affect young Mexican players getting opportunities in first teams. I mean, that's the legitimate debate.
That's where it comes out, where having so many foreign-based players, which in my opinion, I can see both of the arguments for it. I don't. Having more foreign-based players does it make the league more competitive, and are we losing those of getting them in? Again, living in the U.S., for almost more than half of my life, imagine, it's still a company. The Liga MX is still a business. The way they're running it, and they're on their business laws, I mean, imagine that in the U.S. having, we only have a cap on foreign naturalized players in a company where it's, it's making a revenue. It's ridiculous to think about that. But again, what rules need to be in place, and what other countries? And Tom, to you that you've seen, obviously you've lived in Europe, are there other countries that are taking this foreign or naturalized kind of theme and doing okay with it? Looking at Spain in the rosters of their teams, a lot of foreign players that are there, and it looks like from their national team winning in 2010, have they really suffered from it? So just I can see both arguments on it, right?
No, yeah, I mean Spain, you're allowed. I mean the thing in Europe is that legally, if you're a member of a citizen of the EU, you can work anywhere in the EU. So they tried to make it national, but they couldn't because it was deemed illegal. So I think Spain are allowed 3, if I'm not mistaken, 3 foreign players. And in England,
you get your EU passport in 2 years, right?
If you're from certain countries. So if you're from Latin America, yeah. Same with Spain. Spain do that as well. But I mean, obviously the Spanish clubs have also got a lot of them anyway. Have got a youth system, and they've got a philosophy of promoting the players, of giving them opportunities, and they train them to a very high standard. I mean, the amount of talent that's come out of Spain and is coming out of Spain is obviously unbelievable. In the Premier League, there's a homegrown rule, so each out of the, I think it's 23-man squad that each Premier League team has, you have to have I think it's 8 homegrown players, which mean they were trained in England between a certain age, from a certain age. So, but it's not working because they're taking over and they're considering kind of upping the amount of homegrown players. But yeah, it's a complicated issue. But it's like Osorio said, it's a globalized world. And in the Mexican context, it is complicated. I'm also like, I really don't want somebody to go crazy and be like, right, we're going to have one foreigner a team and blah blah blah, because they add so much to the league. I mean, I think they really do, and I think you could make the argument that they help Mexican players a lot as well, because if you've got a league absolutely full of Mexican players, you don't experience a different type of player, a different way of playing. So I think you could argue it helps Mexican players as well. But I think the clubs have to look at themselves. And this is the irony for me of the naturalized debate. You got the club owners who are hiring coaches that don't play youngsters. They're buying foreigners, and that have all the decisions within their club. And they're buying the foreigners, they're promoting the naturalized players. Then at the same time, they're the same people who want to reduce the amount. So it's like, instead of like going on, why don't you practice what you preach and do it in your own backyard? A bit like someone like Pachuca's been doing.
I do think
go ahead,
something that's to the league where they can, especially if they do something that gives people or the clubs enough time to adjust or to look for it. If they say, it doesn't have to happen next season, but if we pass this now, you have to have this percentage of homegrown Mexicans in the league. Then it would give everyone a goal, and the teams that have been doing it all the way along would be rewarded, and the teams that haven't been doing it would have to scramble, but they'd have enough time to meet it. Like a homegrown rule seems like a pretty good idea to reward the academies. Right now, it's almost like a lottery system. Instead of bringing up a whole bunch of players who are solid squad players, it's like just you get through, and then clubs buy the rest. But who knows if the ones that are being bought are sort of, stifling the development of those, especially the ones when it's a new coach, and it's probably because Liga MX is so impatient. They're so impatient with coaches. If a new coach comes in, he doesn't really know the academy players. He doesn't have time to know the academy players. He's going to look at his first team squad and then figure out who he might know that he can bring in to fill in an immediate hole. He's not going to go in there and scour the academy and look who has potential, and it's just not done that way right now. And with that high coaching turnover, it's going to perpetuate the idea that you can buy a player rather than develop a player. I think for development, you could pass something like that. But I don't like the stigma of it being something like naturalizados are bad. I really think there should be like a lot more focus on we need to do better in development, not there's something wrong with foreigners in our league. Because I agree with Tom. Foreign players add a lot to the league. They make it exciting. They bring in a different style of play.
Yeah, but the right foreign players.
And it's one of the most exciting leagues in the world.
But the right foreign players that can make in the league, you're talking about, the Gnacs, you're talking about that type of player that are going to make the league exciting. The argument is that these coaches are finding other foreign players by promotores that are like, hey, take this guy, take this guy, to this guy, that are not better, that are costing money just because they're a promise, so we can blame the money of the football and the politics and all of that, and that's where it goes. Ultimately, if you want your league to grow, you're going to need to have foreign, players come in. I can't imagine the MLS growing without any, their whole point right now is to try to get more people in from the outside, right? Are they going to limit that? And I think it goes down to the Central American leagues. Why aren't they competitive? I don't think a country can just keep closed off to be a competitive league because of all the different types of players in the world. If you just imagine a Costa Rica saying no foreign players, it's not going to grow. So they're going to have that balance.
Well, I think MLS has got a lot more foreign players as percentage than Mexico as well, by quite a bit. But I think what I really hope happens in this situation is that the owners don't overreact.
And make some crazy rule?
Yeah, make some crazy rule, because I'm kind of happy that Santos and Pachuca are two of the clubs that put forward proposals. But because what I don't want to exaggerate here, but what I think could be at stake is what do you want from your league? You know what I mean? I think the Mexican league has the potential to be the league in the Americas. The number one undisputed best league, because you look at Brazil and Argentina, and they've got their own problems down there, and you look at the money that Mexico has, and if they could get it together and organize it properly, I mean, it's already a good league, but you see so much potential, and obviously MLS is vying for that spot as well. But I just hope the Liga MX gets this right and make sure that the absolute top quality foreign players like Gignac, like Fernando Fernandez, who took his place, can still come here and play.
You're funny. I started to laugh when you were Pachuca doing, amazing things with the youth, and then I see Conejo Perez at Conejo Perez at
43 next month. 43 next month.
Yeah, 43 in less than a week.
Oh yeah, in a week.
But yeah, obviously, keepers, you can always go more. I think right now there's a guy in Uruguay, that I think is like 56 in like the second, third division. Still playing, not a goalkeeper. He's a defender.
Still up for us, Weasel. They're still up for us.
Right. I mean, come on. But it's a tough topic and where they're at. So send us your tweets. I know there's a lot of conversation on the chat. Picking up a couple of things from Joel, who definitely has a lot of knowledge of the game. He's always chatting. He said it's because of the quick results that we want in those short season formats that don't allow us to keep the youth, and that's what some of the coaches. And it makes sense. We need to win in 5 months, 6 months. Or are we really going to try to develop? Or if I know a guy that knows someone that's really good and I'm a new coach, instead of looking for that and trust those other people. So interesting topic, guys. I know sometimes it's tough. And that's even without getting into the sentimental who's Mexican more than thou and whatever. I think it's a good conversation. Where it comes down to the Mexican national team, if there is a naturalizado better than someone out there, then I'm always been like, go ahead and give him a try. Don't tell me if Gignac all of a sudden didn't ever play for the French or doesn't and is out there and can somehow play for Mexico. I wouldn't want him on the team. Benedetto guy's got what, 3 years? 2 years now?
Benedetto for Copa America.
He can't play. He doesn't have 5 years yet.
I thought it was 2.
No, it's 5 years.
It's
5 years. It's 2 years that the naturalizado in Mexico, but FIFA states that it has to be 5 years.
Yeah.
So there goes all of that's kind of been coming up. So.
Well, he's been at America for 2 years. he was at Cholos for
one.
That's getting close.
Yeah. So I think a couple of years, but Ginak's son, right? I mean, there's no question he can definitely
train him up. How old is he? 6 months.
6 months. I mean, we could already start establishing in the 2032 World Cup that's going to be held in
get him in the under ones.
under one. Great
Tigres
discussion,
under
guys,
ones.
as always. Just to where it kind of takes us, but it's already almost 10. I know we were late, so we're still gonna talk just a bit more on the Europeos really quickly, and also El Tri to kind of take us around the topic of Pulido scoring and what's happening. Juan Carlos Osorio was asked if Pulido scoring 2 goals, does he keep an eye on Juan Carlos Osorio? Did say that they're keeping an eye on everybody. Very political answer. They're keeping an eye on everybody in Europe and what they're doing, and obviously it's all about form. But to you, Andrea, it's what's happening with Pulido, and just in that Europeo talk in Mexico. I mean, what's going on in the fact that if he keeps on scoring, and Tom, you can also chime into this since you know a little bit more about the laws and what's going on with Tigres, but we saw Pulido with great potential. Now goes in with Olympiacos, scores goals, and now it could still be a potential for Copa America, maybe a return, or maybe even the Olympics.
He's already played in the Olympics, but yeah, I mean, Pulido is like the lost lamb who got separated from the fold, and he might be coming back in. It's. I mean, anything could happen after Carlos Vela came back after 3-4 years, and anytime you have a player with potential, it's kind of sad to see it fall off completely. I was actually pulling for Pulido to come to MLS when those rumors were starting, just to get him playing time, because it seemed Olympiacos was never going to give him a chance. Now, if they're getting production from him, maybe they're not going to let him go, and then he can make a success of it. I also think that part of me honestly likes the way that he was just willing to be a rebel. The whole Pacto de Caballeros that kind of quietly controls Liga MX and other aspects of Mexican soccer, I think it's kind of shameful. But a player shouldn't have to sacrifice his whole career to go against it.
Girls always like those bad boys.
It seems to happen that way. And if he can't make a success of it, I think it's going to be like the first blow that's been struck against that system. Mm-hmm. But a couple of goals in a couple of games, I don't know if it's going to change all of that quickly. 3
goals in 5 games, if I'm not mistaken. Tom keeps on scoring. I thought this was already resolved, that he was getting in trouble and FIFA's getting involved, and Tigres ultimately, they came down with the fact that they never signed anything else, and Tigres got the right of way, but here he is playing with Olympiacos. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's another appeals process. It's going to take a bit of time, but I don't think there's any reason he can't play for Mexico, and that's why Osorio's saying what he did. I just think it's a big grey area still, because I think the ruling was basically there wasn't anything else than what Tigres was saying, if you know what I mean, which is obviously going to be the case. It's really difficult, but yeah, no, he's a good player, Pulido. I mean, I don't think he's necessarily all there in the head with some of the things he does, but I mean, he's a good player, and from the rumours from MLS, I mean, I think he was on the brink. I really think, from what I was hearing, he was on the brink of signing with MLS, and I think what happened was that the coach over at Olympiacos has said, wait up, we're going to give you a chance, and they've given him a chance, and he's banged a couple of goals in, so good for him, and hopefully he can build from here, because Mexico needs Pulido. I mean, I know that might sound exaggerated, but you look at how many strikers under the age of 25, 26 are regularly starting in the Liga MX, and not many. I mean, Cubo Torres you've got up there, Marco Bueno's not really. They aren't really playing well, so Mexico need strikers Pulido's age and younger to start really making an impact.
That is right. Switching over to a great Europeos weekend, I think with Layun, Hector Moreno now scoring 2 goals with that Guardado assist and what he's doing there in PSP. But most importantly, like what I said in a stat that now has the record for most goals in Europe as a defender, beating Rafa Marquez now, and I think a little bit, 9 years Moreno's been in Europe, I think, to Rafa Marquez 13. So if they were able to replace, if he was going to be the best, next Rafa Marquez, I think he's on the right path, even though, maybe not getting into that Barca status, but good for him. Obviously, Guardado in what he's still doing, amazing things. And more importantly, I'm glad that Johnny Rico is here so he can comment on his favorite player of all time, Mr. Fabián de la Mora, and what he did in coming in.
Wait. This is the Europeo section, right? So I wouldn't be out of line to say Guillermo Ochoa should be starting goalkeeper for Mexico.
No, that's almost there. But and Fabián coming in, if you didn't watch the game, off a sub and did a.
I didn't watch Liga MX. There's no way in hell I'm watching Marco Fabián.
and what we see that. So Marco Fabián getting a great assist after un túnel que le hizo alguien ahí. But going, I think. If there's anybody out there that can give me his stats, but consecutive weekends that Mexicans have scored, starting from last year over, I think it'd be interesting to see because it feels like every weekend one of them is either scoring here or there. So I think it'd be fun to kind of keep that up. But yeah, overall, guys, other than maybe Raúl Jimenez, who it looks like his minutes are diminishing, everyone doing well.
Sure,
yeah, and Reyes is struggling as well.
Reyes?
Don't know what the common theme there is. No idea. Ochoa, Reyes, and Jimenez.
Shouldn't America would be 15th champion by now?
Pretty much all the America players.
But on a serious note, I'm going to make a wild prediction that in the summer, one or both of Guardado and Moreno to the Premier League. I'm just thinking the amount of money that's floating around and it's going to be floating around with the new TV deal this summer and the form that those two are showing in a league that traditionally kind of translates well in terms of moving from the Netherlands to the Premier League. Yeah. I think if you're one of those mid-table teams, for looking at someone like Guardado, I'd bring him in. I mean, the 2015 that he had, and he's carried it on now. Bring him in, and Moreno, I think, has always had that kind of trajectory to be in the Premier League, and I think he would have probably gone if he hadn't got injured.
Exactly.
Now,
wild prediction.
The bad thing is, I don't see either of those two successful in the Premier League. Mexicans don't have a good time in Premier League. Chicharito was slightly the most successful one, but even that, half successful.
Well, I think it's a different type. I mean, I know that the
different type of soccer, and Mexicans are not very good at that type of soccer.
No, but I feel like the different type of player now than we've used to seeing that in the history. I think it used to be said that Latin players couldn't play in the Premier League. I mean, very few before. I'm talking the next, in last 8 years we've seen a little bit more than. I mean, I could see a Guardado and especially playing in the Netherlands in that type of football, taking that step. I think that may be the right way, and aside from what Chicharito did, so I kind of there with Tom.
I think they'd be better suited going to Spain and or Italy.
No, I think Moreno. I know what Johnny's saying, but Moreno and Guardado, the time they've had in Europe, they're used to different styles now. They've got enough national team experience. They've never looked out of depth there. I think it would be a great challenge for him, and I really hope it happens because I don't know. I think Mexico need a couple of players at least, don't they? In England.
So we can watch the EPL. You're right.
Yeah, for you, it would be like the perfect combination. You're going to watch Mexican players in your home country. But yeah. I kind of agree with Johnny here in that it's really a slightly different style that I also think doesn't appreciate what Mexican players have to offer. How long Chicharito was benched, and Carlos Vela and even Gio dos Santos. What they've shown in other leagues compared to the opportunities they had in England. And I'm still saying that maybe possibly that whole reputation about the Latin player, there's been a few exceptions, but I still think that a lot of coaches in the Premier League in England still have that, mentality where they're going to look at a creative player and say, oh, that's just, unnecessary. I want somebody who's going to go directly to goal. I want, somebody I can count on to just, charge forward and get stuck in.
Yeah.
I mean, admit it. Those are the qualities that, in many ways, are really valued in the Premier League. And I mean, to me, the fact that Chicharito is so successful right now in Germany, which is in its own way a tough, efficient league, is proof that he didn't get enough of a chance in England.
But that's because of the new coach.
Having to do with the team he was with.
It had to do because of the coach. And sorry to interrupt, but I mean, if Sir Alex Ferguson would have kept in.
Coaches that are in the Premier League that aren't giving creative players in general a chance, and historically Mexican players also in general. So we can say that it was that coach in particular, but Chicharito was on the bench under Ferguson too. So let's not act like Ferguson had made him a regular starter and then Moyes and Van Gaal just ruined it.
He started in his last game. I think he.
Yeah, no, but there was.
But it wasn't a regular starter. It's not,
you have to admit Robin van Persie and Wayne Rooney were higher up the food chain than Chicharito, even under Sir Alex Ferguson.
Specifically, he went on loan to Real freaking Madrid. I mean, it's not like you would really expect to get a lot of playing time. If he had been on a different team in England, maybe it would have been a whole different story. But it wasn't. And my point is that historically, yes, this opportunity hasn't been given, even to the ones that are considered among the most talented of Mexico's generation.
Because there hasn't really been any players that can. But let's talk about. If we're looking at historically why there hasn't been that many EPO players, because there hasn't been that many players that have gone to Europe to play. Now we have a pool of players from Europe that could make that, that in the last 10, 15 years is when the Mexican players started going to Europe.
But just the Mexican game itself, their style of play.
True.
But I don't think it's black and white though. I think we're trying to pinpoint this like black and white. It's like, well, Mexicans can't do it in England. That's not true.
I'm not saying Mexicans can't do it in England. I'm saying Mexicans aren't being given the chance, and their game isn't appreciatiated, and that's part of the reason why.
True. I'll give it.
It is. You've got players like David Silva. David Silva's absolutely tiny. I think it's changed in England now, but I don't think the sample's been big enough, and out of all the players they've gone, Barrera, Juarez, but obviously I take the point that it is difficult. It's more difficult because it is more physical and the less forgiving. They are less forgiving. If you're not doing it, if you're not putting your shift in, if you're getting pushed off the ball, then you won't play. It's as simple as that. But going back to the point, I think that Guardado and Moreno are experienced, good enough, mature enough to completely succeed. I think they've 100% got the required level of play right now to be playing week in, week out for a decent team, a Swansea or a team of that plays well, or a Southampton that actually play nice football, that pass it around and try to play the beautiful game.
Yeah, and I kind of and just to kind of end the argument, I see Johnny and I see Andrea that usually the Mexican players it is difficult for him to play in England, but that's because I feel like making the trip from Mexico to England is not going to be a good one. But going to Europe first with the pool of players, we've never had this many players play in Europe. And then that's where you can go to the English game, going to the Netherlands, going to Germany or whatever. And I feel like that is why now it's a different time in Mexican players, because they're not playing in Mexico and in that type of style. But now they're getting used to leagues in Germany, in the Netherlands, in Portugal, where you can kind of get to the closer, not as long as England. And that's where I can see more players first playing in Europe and then going to England, as to say that, a direct there, because there isn't a sample size of kind of what Tom's saying. But it's true they have struggled before.
In terms of saying, because I'll take a bet with you and Tom right now that we're not going to get a Mexican player in the league, in the Premier League, starting regularly next season. Because that's what he was saying at the beginning of all this.
If what no.
I'm not saying that it won't change, but I'm looking at the scene right now and saying for next season that's not going to happen for either of those. And I love El Principito Guardado, and I think Moreno's kind of this quiet hero for what he has just steadily accomplished. But I would also argue that the Dutch league has an appreciation for those skilled players that the Premiership historically has not shown. And that's why I don't see either of those two Mexican players going to the Premier League next season and getting an opportunity. So, just love you, disagree.
I'm with Andrea. I can see them arriving at the Premier League, but they'll be riding the bench. They'll be
the problem is that
for their career.
There's no way I can take that bet, but let me give you a bet, and I think I can take this. Here's my bet, and I'll counter with this, and then we can end. Between 1980 and 2005, we'll count how many Mexicans played in the Premier League. Just played, not even whatever. And from 2005 to 2030, we'll count how many. And I guarantee you that in 2030, January 2nd, there will be more Mexicans playing that played in because of our style moving to Europe. And that's how we can see if there was really a difference from pool players in Europe going in there.
So you're offering a bet that I cannot come collect from you until 2030.
Yes.
I'll bet Moreno next season. No problem. I think he's going to happen. I think that's what he wants to do. PSV is selling.
I think there's an insider information.
And he's a left-footed centre back. How many left-footed centre backs around Europe?
I can see him arriving at the Premier League.
At the Langham.
All right.
All right, there it is.
I'm saying he spends more time on the bench than on the playing field.
All right. Well, we'll see if he goes. But the other one's Tecatito. Tecatito will go. And the reason I'm bold in making these predictions is because there's so much money in the Premier League. Premier League now are going to be picking off these players, and
I bet you Tom's got some insider trade information on there. I mean, he is English. He was just in England, and he does talk around. I'm going to go with Tom on this one. But excellent. Somebody in the Mexican Soccer Show, the little chat on the YouTube said, write this down because we're going to start collecting. But great conversation in this. Will Mexicans get more playing time in the EPL? Only time will tell, but at least we have this bet, Andrea and Johnny versus Tom. Tom saying right now, Hector Moreno and Andrés Guardado next year, and we're going to go back to this and look at it.
They could arrive, they just won't play.
Oh, so Johnny's changing his story now.
I've never changed it. I'm saying they could arrive. They just won't play.
All I know is January 1st of 2031. We're gonna jump on.
Oh, now you extended it a whole year more. I can't.
Oh, sorry, January 30th. January 30th. Yeah, it's the 30th, 2030. All right, guys. We spent a lot going over it really quickly. Mexican national team plays February 10th versus Senegal. No, it's a FIFA date. No players. Really quickly before we end, Tom, you're making the travel to Miami?
I'm not sure yet.
Not sure yet. What do we take out of this? This game. Obviously, part of some and preparation to the March FIFA dates and. We make a lot of it?
I mean, honestly, not a great deal. I think what it's going to be is Osorio's going to have a look at a lot of the younger players, a lot of the players that might go to the Olympics that are based in Mexico, and I think based on that, he's going to be looking towards 2017, and 2017 more than anything. I don't think it's going to be like they're going to play well in this game and then all of a sudden they're going to be in the March friendlies, they're going to be in the Copa America. I think that.
I do think that Osorio has to look at some younger players, partly because it's another crowded year for the Mexican national team. They've got the Olympics, they've got the Copa America Centenario, and he's going to need to know which different player rosters. I have to say that in some ways, that was what tripped Miguel Herrera up. I still think that if he was just working with one squad all the way through, Herrera would still have the job. But because he had to take that Copa America squad, and it wasn't quite as strong, and there was pressure on the team to perform better coming back to the Copa America. By the time he got to the Copa de Oro, the guy was stressed out. He was like, I mean, because there was so much media pressure on him for the bad Copa America, and he just kind of flipped out in that airport thing. If one hadn't happened, the other wouldn't have happened, in my opinion.
The Miami.
So Osorio is gonna prove his coaching acumen if he can put together two good squads.
The Miami game is going to do more harm than good. You can't really win anything, but if you lose that game, pressure starts building up for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, very true. It makes money though. Ching 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 ching.
It gets coaches fired.
All right, guys. Our producers are telling us that they have to go to bed because it's getting really late. Looking here at the watch and what's going on, guys. Thank you for jumping on. Thank you for staying a little later. I apologize with the technical difficulties. It's always fun. Lots and lots of topics. Having Johnny, having Andrea, Tom, delightful show. We'll keep those dates, and next year we'll see who wins. But looking forward to next Monday, and that one in 2030, Johnny. We'll be all old men going, I told you so. We'll see where we're at. But Andrea, thank you so much for jumping on with us. I know you have a busy schedule, all that you do here at the Given the Time for Mexico Soccer. So Johnny, thanks again for traveling, especially to the Cholos games, and sometimes you can't be on, but I know Mondays is hard for you too, but thank you for being on. And then obviously Tom in Guadalajara and all of the knowledge that you bring. Thank you for being on the show. Guys, all of you on the chats, if you're listening to us via iTunes and it's Tuesday or Wednesday, send us a line. You're listening. We always love to hear any questions that you have because you might not be on the chat, but I know there's a ton of listener on iTunes. Naive posts that up the very next day. And he said to put on some, definitely rate on the iTunes, the rating of it. I think you get little stars. And yeah, man, keep following us, all of it. Thank you so much. Again, congratulations, Amy, for obviously getting the position of our intern. Thank you to all who are listening to us. This has been another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. Hasta la otra, hasta la próxima. El próximo lunes, next Monday, 7 p.m. Pacific.